Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Nordic Football Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss, and I'm joined by Henry Nicholls. At Football in DK, we're going to be doing a complete season preview for the Danish Superliga, which starts very, very soon, this weekend, in fact. And Henry, welcome. It honestly feels like yesterday since you were last on the podcast doing this season review for Denmark. They don't have very long of a break, and I'm sure you're raring to go again.
Can't wait. Yeah. With no World Cup this summer, it's nice that the Superliga is back so soon. And yeah, if it wasn't so swelteringly hot here in London, I'd be enjoying it a bit more, I think. But I'm not really one for the heat, so I'm going to be watching it from inside a cool room.
It's going to get even hotter, I think, Henry. So, watch out for that. But yeah, in the meantime, you've been a bit of a celebrity, haven't you? You've seen you on the BBC, seen you on the Scouted Football podcast as well. You're a big star there now. This man who's expert in Danish football. I think you're doing a great job.
I'm not sure about that, but I'm certainly pleased that there's some interest in Danish football. Obviously, the BBC thing was just really. Brighton signed Simon Adingra from FC Nordsjælland, and I guess one of the things about the Danish league is that when a Premier League team especially signs a player from there, most of the fans won't have seen the player play at all, really. Maybe once or twice in Europe, but so Simon Adingra has arrived, and Brighton fans don't really know what to expect. So I was there to to tell them to be excited, really, because he was certainly one of the shining lights of the Superliga last season.
Well, here we are to preview the 2022-2023 campaign, the only mainstream league in Scandinavia that runs this format. The season starts now, has a winter break and through. So without further ado, it's time for your predictions, Henry. I'm going to ask you now to name the predicted champion for the upcoming season. Who are you going with?
I am going for FC Copenhagen to repeat their title triumph of last season. I think they are the strongest team still in the league. They haven't weakened considerably this summer, and I think they're looking very good to retain that. So they're my number one pick for this season.
Defending champions, like you say, 68 points last season, just 4 defeats. For those who might be even listening for the first time of you on the Nordic Football Podcast here about Danish football, FC Copenhagen are probably the biggest name in Scandinavia. But what sort of team are they these days? Who are some of their key players, and what sort of style do they have?
Yeah, so they have a coach called Jes Thorup, who has previously won the title with Midtjylland, and I would describe him as quite a sort of pragmatic coach. Doesn't play the most sort of beautiful football, but certainly gets results. And if you look at how they performed last season, they were the best defense, only conceded 19 goals across the season. They were the second best attack. They scored 56. And he goes for a kind of a 4-3-3 or sometimes switches it up to a 4-2-3-1. And the way that they play is built on an incredibly solid defensive foundation. You can see that in the statistics. But what's quite interesting is that they play very much a low block, play very deep, and usually when teams do that, they give up the ability to press, because that ends up leaving quite a lot of space. And actually, the interesting thing about his style is that they're extremely effective at pressing. There was a great article by Liam Miller in the Playbook that I've retweeted on my timeline, but it dug into some of the statistics, and the attacking players at FC Copenhagen are ranked in the 97th percentile among all players in the league for pressing. So they're really, really aggressive at the front, but then the rest of the team plays quite deep. When they've got the ball, they're quite patient. They use overlapping fullbacks a lot. Victor Christensen and Kevin Dix, when both are fit, that they offer incredible attacking outlet. And yeah, that they just have quality front to back. I guess looking at some of the key players, Kamil Grabara in goal, He kept 23 clean sheets in 44 appearances. He had the highest save percentage by some margin. It was over 79%. So having him in goal gives a real presence in between the sticks. And then I talked briefly about those fullbacks, Victor Christiansen on the left and Kevin Dix on the right. Christiansen had an injury midway through last season that meant Kevin Dix had to go and play left back a lot towards the end of the season. And, as a right-footed overlapping fullback, he does his best stuff on the right. And I think that with Christiansen now back fit, those two get to really show what they're best at in their favoured positions. And you've got Rasmus Falk, a player who I admire very greatly, who sits in the middle of the park dictating the play. Aside from a few minutes, though, he was out from the end of August until February. So he was quite a big loss for a large chunk of the season. I think the player who really kind of was at the center of everything good that happened at FC Copenhagen last season was Pep Biel, the Spanish attacking midfielder. He had the most shots on target per 90 and the most key passes per 90 across the whole league. And, that translated into 15 goals and 9 assists across all competitions. He scored 4 in 4 derby matches. And so it was really a standout season for him. There's some talk about some Spanish teams being interested in him this summer, but he's a really integral part to how FC Copenhagen play. And he was, very versatile. He can sort of play anywhere across the 3 attacking midfielder spots, and he even played it as a kind of false 9 at times last season. And then there's a few players who I think could be key players next season, who we didn't get to see a huge amount of, but showed some real promise. So Rooney Bardaji, a player who we're actually going to talk about later, so I won't spoil that. But
tend to watch spoiler there.
A 16-year-old, very, very exciting right winger. Then there's Akin Kunmi-Amu, who only managed 63 minutes last season. He did score a goal in those 63 minutes, but I mean, given he signed in the January window for a considerable fee, I think it was it 4 million euros from Hammarby. So he missed most of the season. So I think he's a player who I'm really excited to see, and I think could come back and offer something. And then finally, Victor Claesson, who was on loan for since March, I think, and they've turned that into a permanent deal. And yeah, he added a lot of experience and a lot of class, no pun intended. And so yeah, he signed on a 4-year deal. So I think that's an important signing. So really, I think the only thing that I would say about FC Copenhagen is that they need a number 9. They sold Jonas Wind in January, and they brought in a number of players. They brought in Nikolai Jorgensen, who they've now released. They brought in Kuma Babakar, who was, I think, pretty ineffective. And so I think they need a number 9, someone who can chip in with 10, 15 goals. And I think that would be the final piece of the puzzle.
FC Copenhagen are known to, I'm sure, a lot across the world as the biggest team in Denmark, and some might even be listening and think, "Oh, this is the equivalent of you predicting PSG to win the title in France." But it's not as simple as that, is it? I mean, if we look back at the last 9 titles, they've actually only won 4 of them, which might be quite a low amount, kind of compared to some other historical moments. And the bookmakers basically have this as a 2-horse race between FCK and FC Midtjylland, who I'm sure we're going to talk about in a minute. If FC Copenhagen are going to have a sort of a weak point this year, or any concerning aspects, what would it potentially be? Or do you think they've literally got all bases covered?
I think it's just that number 9 spot. If you look at what Jonas Wind contributed in the kind of 6 months that he was there, in terms of goals and assists, it was more than all of the replacements put together. So his output is that they haven't managed to address that in the signings they've made so far. And so I think that having a number 9 who can really sort of be the focal point of that attack, and take some of the pressure off the midfield to come up with the goals, I think that's going to be fundamental. And I'm sure that that's something that they're going to try and address.
Well, you are predicting them to win the title, and second place, you have predicted FC Midtjylland. Now, how close do you see this title race going, Henry? Do you think FC Copenhagen are going to win it with a bit to spare, or are Midtjylland going to push them all the way?
I think a lot depends on how the rest of the window pans out. We talked about Pep Biel, for example. There's also Evander for FC Midtjylland, and I think that I wouldn't say the title race hinges on those two, but they're going to be a big part of it. And I saw some rumors going around today about Evander possibly going to Galatasaray, and so I think if they were to lose him, that would be massive. He was the third top scorer in the league last season with 12 goals, and he got 6 assists as well. He was second in terms of chances created and big chances created. So he's just such an important player to them. And offers so much going forward that I think that it would leave a big hole to fill. One of the questions I have is, can they get a tune out of Max Meyer? We talked about him coming in January, obviously quite a big name, quite high expectations for the potential he still has. And we really haven't seen much from him. I'm guessing that he would be one of the players who would be, potentially stepping up into that position if Evander did move on. So a lot hinges on someone being able to replace that output. Similarly for Pep Biel. So to answer your question, I think that it's still going to be quite a tight title race. Both teams have quality and depth. Both teams have the kind of sidetrack of Europe, and they are the two strongest squads in the league. So I can still see it being close. I don't think it will be more than a 6-point gap come the end of the season. But yeah. I think that we still have 6 weeks, 7 weeks left of the market. So I think that a lot could still change between now and then, which is why it's quite difficult doing this preview show with so many questions still unanswered.
Yeah, I was thinking this actually, of all the leagues, probably even around the world, it's probably one of the hardest, isn't it? Because you've got a transfer window here, 1 month between the two campaigns, and then you've got winter windows as well. Things are less clearer. I think here there's going to be a lot of chops and changes. So yeah, it is a difficult sort of preview to do. And you were totally right that it's according to Transfermarkt, total market value of the two teams here. This is always a rough guide, but 55 million for FCK and 50 million for FC Midtjylland. The next closest is Brøndby, which is 25 million total market value. It kind of just shows you, just the amount of foreigners in these two squads as well is much more compared to other teams in the league, and overall squad size is much higher. Midtjylland's official squad size is 37, according to Transfermarkt. So we're going to talk about FC Midtjylland now. Second place last year. They last won the title in the 1920 campaign. So tell us a bit more about this side. They'll be desperate to try and recoup that gold medal, won't they, Henry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're an extremely dangerous team offensively. Last season, most goals, most shots on target, highest shots on target percentage, most penalties. So going forward, they're brilliant. They play quite an attacking 3-4-3. And at the center of that 4 in midfield is this dynamic duo of Rafael Onyedika and Evander. And those two work so well together. It was the first season that they were playing together in midfield. And yeah, that worked really nicely. And actually, looking at the championship round, Midtjylland only lost once, which was a 1-0 loss to FC Copenhagen, last-minute goal. But they finished the season quite strong. So that's how they were able to run FC Copenhagen so close. In terms of kind of the moves they've made this summer, they made quite an expensive signing last summer. A guy called Moroni from from Brazil that I believe they paid 4 or 5 million euros for, which is a huge fee by Superliga standards. And he arrived with, big fanfare. And that's a move that didn't work out. He's gone back to Brazil, I believe, initially on loan. I think he's gone to Fluminense. So that was a bit of a mistake. But one of the positive moves is they've managed to secure the permanent signing of Dreyer, who's a player that they had at the beginning of last season, sold to I believe it was Rubin Kazan, and he came back on loan at the end of last season and really was a kind of shot in the arm for them. Looked fantastic, and he was the leader last season in goals and assists per 90, with the only player to have more than one goal and assist per 90. So he's really important. They've managed to bring him in on a full-time deal. And to be honest, I was kind of surprised by that, because he went to the Russian league and looked really good. And I'm just surprised that he hasn't had an offer to go to a kind of like a top 5 European league. But their loss is Midtjylland's gain. So he's going to be really important. And I guess the question is just, how do you fit in 4 wingers at the moment, where they've got Dreyer, Chilufya, Isaacson, and Pione Sisto. And I think the answer is going to be Pione Sisto is going to be moved on. But yeah, that they've made a couple of interesting additions this summer. They also signed a centre back called Gartenman from Cernijewska, who was the leader in interceptions last season. So yeah, I think they've retooled. They're going to lick their wounds, having missed out on the league. They did win the cup, which was a nice way to finish the season. So yeah, I think they're going to be raring to go, and they actually kick off on the opening day on Friday.
I'm just looking at some of their transfers here, and there's a striker I used to follow in France called Sori Kaba, who's come back from a loan spell in Belgium, and I don't know whether he's expected to play much of a part this season or not. He was a shambles at Dijon back in the day. In fact, I'm just looking now. Apparently, a Belgium side called Louvain, I think that's how you pronounce them, nearly paid £1 million for a loan fee for him last season. He actually scored 10 goals, in fairness, for them, but I don't know if he's going to come back and play any part this season, Henry.
I think I'm right in saying he scored. Was he the top scorer the previous season for Midtjylland? I think he was.
He has, yeah. He's obviously got a history of scoring goals since moving to Midtjylland. So fair play to him.
I think I saw he was back in training at Midtjylland. So it might be that they use him in rotation with Brumado at the number 9 position. It seems strange that he went on loan last season rather than either keep him or sell him. But I guess that's loans are becoming more of the game these days.
Yeah, they certainly are. So compare the two sides here, then FCK and Midtjylland. Where do you see FCK sort of having the edge overall? Is it defensive areas? Do you think that they've got the edge over Midtjylland?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, Midtjylland do still have a good defense. Guys like Eric Sviatchenko are just absolute rocks at the back. I think goalkeeper is a position that I'm still not fully sold on the options at Midtjylland. And I think that's an area where FCK are really streets ahead. And I also think that the fact that you've got such a kind of a strong defensive spine at Copenhagen kind of gives them the opportunity to build from that. If you get 23 clean sheets in 44 appearances, which is what Grabara got, that's the basis for a title winning team every time. And I think Midtjylland will always score goals, but I think that sometimes, that they're left wanting a little bit defensively.
Okay, so he predicts an FC Copenhagen to win the league, FC Midtjylland in second place. That pretty much goes with how the bookmakers expect it. There's just looking at Unibet prices here. A clear third favourite in their market, and that is Brøndby, a 6-1 shot. Presumably, you've got them in third place, Henry.
I do not, actually.
Well.
I thought I'd roll the dice on this one and stick my neck out a little bit. No, in third place, I've got Aalborg, who's a team that really fell away at the back end of last season. I think that they finished in fifth, and I don't think they were in fifth throughout the entire championship group until the final day. And they obviously then went on to lose the European playoff. So it was really a disastrous end to the season for them. But I think that missing out on Europe is going to give them the edge in this battle for third place. Brøndby, of course, have European football. Silkeborg have European football. And so I feel that Aalborg, who sort of poached Viborg's manager, Lars Friis, midway through the season. So Friis has had, half a season to kind of get his feet under the desk. He's obviously been behind a couple of key signings this summer. And I think that his very kind of attractive style of football that he kind of favors a 3-4-1-2 generally, or a 3-4-3, depending on how they set up. But yeah, he plays this kind of very attractive style of football, and Aalborg have several quite sort of dynamic attacking midfielders in Luca Prip, Ivar Fossum, Kasper Kusk, and a real fullback threat, particularly on the right, with Pallison, and then one of the best defensive midfielders in the league in Pedro Ferreira, kind of anchoring in midfield. The cause for concern was me that they had one of the lowest shots on target per game tally last season. They were 9th, but on the flip side, they had the highest shot conversion rate. They were first in the league at that 9.4%, so extremely clinical. And yeah, I just think that they've got quite a settled lineup. I like the additions they've made. They signed Alan Sousa from Weiler, who was one of my favorite players in the league. Had a poor season last season, but he's exactly the sort of player that I think will flourish in this system. And also signed Lars Kramer from Viborg, who's a player that obviously Lars Friis knows very well. I think if they can straighten out some of the discipline problems they had last season, they were the team with the most red cards and the third most yellows and fouls. I think if they can sort that out, then I think that they're going to be well placed to finish third. They've got plenty of players who can score goals. Luca Prip, obviously last season, narrowly missed out on being the league's top scorer, but he got 14 goals and 4 assists. But then, Ivar Fossum popped up with 8 goals, Kasper Kusk 4 goals. And I think when you throw Alan Sousa in there as well, and the fact that their number 9, Milan Makaric, seems to be scoring some goals, I think that that's quite a compelling case for finishing third or perhaps fourth, but I'm putting my neck on the line and saying third.
I like a bold prediction, Henry. We do like a bold prediction on this show. They don't always go to plan. But yeah, I do like that. Now, Lars Friis, of course, was one of your best rated managers last year in the season review podcast. Also, you had Aalborg as one of the flops of the season, didn't you? It was an interesting mix. But they just tell us a little bit more about this manager, and I would recommend anyone interested in a little bit more could actually listen to the season review podcast episode we did a few weeks ago. But Lars Friis, what is to like about him and the style for the neutral? Yeah,
so he's interesting in that he wasn't a professional player, and I think that's quite unusual in Denmark. And he started his career at Midtjylland, and he's been at a couple of other clubs along the way as an assistant. He also, I think, spent a year at Brentford, interestingly. But he was in charge of Viborg, and particularly at the start of the season, Viborg were one of the teams who were really kind of catching people's eyes. They were promoted only last season and play this real sort of like swashbuckling style of attacking football, making huge use of fullbacks, and they had a big number 9 in Sebastian Gröning up front. And yeah, Lars Friis was a kind of larger than life character on the touchline, and the football he had them playing as a promoted team, really kind of taking the game to other teams, not sort of sitting back and playing for a goalless draw, really trying to attack even the biggest teams. And okay, sometimes that was their undoing, but I can see why when Marti Cifuentes went over to Sweden, I can see why they moved for him, because I think that he's the perfect example of a kind of reasonably young, he's in his mid-40s, up-and-coming manager who's proven what he can do at Viborg, which was his first, full managerial job. And yeah, he's been handed the reins at Aalborg, who are, a big club in Denmark.
Just looking at some of their signings here, they've brought in Kilian Ludwig from Red Bull Salzburg. Feels like they're selling to everyone this summer. So yeah, some players I don't really know too much. Are you happy with their transfer business overall?
Yeah, I think I think Alan Souza and Lars Kramer are two great signings. I think that one of the big departures is Jakob Rinner, the goalkeeper, who was I think we talked about him a little bit in the season review, but he was probably the second best keeper in the league last season. And so losing him is a big loss. They have brought in a keeper, but it remains to be seen whether he's going to be up to the kind of the level that Jakob Rinner set last season.
So third place prediction for Aalborg this season. Who are you going with in fourth place, Henry?
In fourth place, I've got Silkeborg. And actually, this is I seem to be in the minority predicting Silkeborg to have another solid season. I think because they're in the Europa League, and they're a team that had that used almost a comically small number of players last season. They made the fewest subs in the league. They used the fewest players of any team in the league, and each of their subs also played the fewest minutes. So they're a team that is extremely set on its starting 11 and coped quite well with one game a week. So I think how that translates into 2 games a week is a big unknown. What I would say, though, is that outside of the top 2, and even in some cases, including the top 2, they played by far and away the most attractive football last season. And it wasn't just attractive, it was extremely efficient. It was extremely potent in terms of the goals. And it's such a... You can tell the players fit the system absolutely perfectly. They play this very consistent 4-3-3 with a deep-lying central midfielder in Mark Brink, 2 inverted wingers in Nikolai Valleys and Sebastian Jorgensen, and then a central number 9 in Nicholas Hellenius. And their style is incredibly high possession. So they're the highest possession team in the league. They were last season. They play the most passes by some distance and have the highest pass success rate. So that they make 526 passes per game, I think, and the next place team was 409. They keep it on the deck. The fewest crosses per match. So like they have a really, really efficient style, and they're also extremely well disciplined. So they make the fewest fouls, the fewest yellow cards, and they're also the fewest offsides. So the players are extremely well drilled, extremely capable of what they're doing. And yeah, when you look across the squad, it's, they haven't sold any of their stars yet. Again, that will change things. But I think if they can keep this squad together, just the sheer volume of chances they were making, that the quality of their passing, and the amount of goal threat they have scattered throughout the attacking options, I think I can see them having another strong season. I just don't see how they can drop off performance-wise so considerably to rule them out of the top 6. And I think that actually fourth, probably, if they can keep that squad together, is going to be realistic?
Well, I'll say one thing here, Henry. Just looking at in terms of estimated budgets for the league, and it looks like they've possibly got the fourth or fifth worst budget. This is the story of a club who last season were one of the favourites for relegation, of course, and managed to shock everyone by finishing third. So, do you kind of worry that they've climbed that Everest? They've almost had a freak season, and there will be a drop off.
Yeah, I think there's always the case that when a team is promoted, the other teams have less knowledge of how they play, and the sort of maybe get caught out by, I don't know, a player that they don't consider to be dangerous, and after a season, that sort of novelty factor wears off. But I just think that this wasn't a coincidence. They got third on merit. That there weren't sort of smash and grab games. They were outplaying teams consistently, and they didn't have players who were massively outperforming their XG and things like that. And I think that when you just almost every statistic shows them in a really favourable light, and that's borne out by what I've seen on the pitch. So yeah, I think had they changed manager, had they lost one of their sort of key 3 or 4 players, then perhaps. But honestly, I just don't see it.
Well, again, a very brave prediction, some might say here, Henry. But you've got Silkeborg in fourth place. I've noticed a very, very little ins or outs from this team right now, and you do say that there might be some concerns about keeping that squad together. But I guess we don't really know, do we, until the start of September?
Exactly. And I guess some players might be hanging on to see, are we going to make it into the Europa League, or are we going to drop down into the Conference League? But I think that Kent Nielsen, the manager there, has a huge amount of respect and a great connection with the squad. And I don't know, looking at lots of the profiles there, I can't see why lots of them wouldn't benefit from another season under his tutelage. Playing in Europe, showing that they're not a flash in the pan, and that they can do this consistently. And I think that I think that the quality of offers that those players are going to get after a second season, particularly playing in Europe, I think will be considerably higher than what would be on the table this summer. So I think that it suits everyone to stick around for another year. But I mean, maybe I'm just saying that because I want to see them next season in the Superliga.
What is a good season for them, do you think? What will their fans expect? What do the media expect?
I think if they can cement themselves as a top 6 team again, and get either get into the group stage of the Europa League or get into the knockout stages of the Conference League, I think that would be extremely successful. Maybe go on a run in the Cup too. But I think that if they can show that that last season wasn't a fluke, and that they are a top 6 team, I think that would be amazing. I mean, given last season they spent 0 in transfers, I think that it's a remarkable story, and long may it continue.
And now then, Brøndby fans, we haven't forgotten about you. They are the third favourites for the bookies this season, but you are predicting Brøndby the champions of the 2020-2021 campaign, down as low as 5th, which I'm guessing in a lot of quarters might seem low. Let's start with the negatives, Henry. Here, what worries about you? What worries you about Brøndby this season that you feel that? I say a drop down. They actually only as high as 4th last year, so it's only 1 space down. But I guess there might be some people expecting them to be almost a dark horse, maybe to even title challenge. So what do you see that's wrong about this team?
Right. Well, bear in mind that they started last season still with Mikel Jura, who was the previous season's top scorer, and had 11 goals in the first half of the season. He was topping the charts of the goal scoring this season before he departed for MLS. And if you look at what his replacements in attack for Brøndby put together, bearing in mind, so Jura got 11 goals. If we look at what Divkovic got 1 goal, Hedlund 4 goals, Grev 1 goal, Bjork no goals, Pavlovic no goals. You don't need to be a mathematician to see that's 6 goals from 5 players, which doesn't get anywhere close to replacing the output from Mikel Jura. So my big worry for Brøndby is who's going to score the goals. They finished last season, I believe, with a negative goal difference. And yeah, that really just talks to their struggle. Their season was kind of strange because from late September, they went on this run that saw them go unbeaten for 12 games, which was pretty incredible. But then they lost 7 straight. So how do you go from going unbeaten for 12 games to then losing 7 straight? And really kind of up until that losing run, they'd mostly played with a 3-5-2. Then they started experimenting with a 3-4-3 before settling on something like a 4-3-1-2. And that they play quite a long ball style, which is unusual for the league. They had more accurate long balls than any team, 34 per match. They were the most crosses per game and the highest cross accuracy. And you asked me about my concerns. One of the concerns I have is that only Silkeborg made fewer subs last season. So I don't think they've got the quality in terms of like the broader squad to support a kind of a European campaign on top of a title challenge. And I have real concerns about the who's going to score the goals, basically. Yeah.
Let's talk about the manager, because they do have one of the longest serving managers in the league, don't they? He's been at the club for quite some time.
Yeah, he has. Niels Fredriksson. And I think that he's got quite a lot of goodwill still from winning the title, and was obviously came with great reputation. He'd been manager of the Denmark under-21 team. And yeah, he's only been at Brøndby since 2019 though. So I'm not sure if I don't think he's the longest serving manager there.
That is still quite some time in footballing terms, I must say. He's obviously won that title. Last year wasn't so good for them. What would they need to do in the transfer market to convince you that they're gonna get back into the top 3?
Yeah, so I think that they need to add some goal threat. So either players like Hedlund and Grev are gonna have to start chipping in with more goals, and it's certainly possible. Both of them have it in them, just weren't really producing last season. I think a lot hinges on Mathias Kvistgaarden. He's a 20-year-old striker, looks really exciting. He scored 4 goals in the last 10 rounds, so like the championship round. And he's a really exciting striker. He likes to drift right, but he's a great dribbler. He can receive the ball and run at a defense, but he's also got really smart off the ball movement. For a player under 6 foot, he's a great header of the ball. And I think more than anything, the fact that he does a multiple somersault celebration, that's the sign of an elite player. I can't think of an elite player who does. I can't think of a non-elite player who does a somersault celebration. Can you?
Somersault celebrations. I mean, they've always wowed me. I could never do. I can't even do a forward roll, Henry.
Exactly. So, I mean, if that's not a sign that he's destined for the top, I'm not sure what is. But no, I think Brøndby have got a great player in Kvistgaarden. He needs to show that over a whole season. But they've got him. They've got a great goalkeeper in Mads Hermansen, and they've got some parts of the team that I think are solid. But there isn't the strength in depth. There isn't the goal scoring threat, and I think that there are a couple of players that may. Again, we're saying this about almost every team, but there's a few players that may go out the door. In particular, their captain Maxo, and if he goes, it leaves a big hole in the center of defense that they're going to need to plug as well. So I just wonder if there's too much to do in the market for them to be credible title challengers. But they do have they do have a sprinkling of quality throughout the squad.
Now, for those who don't know, Brøndby, of course, are located on the western suburbs of Copenhagen. They've got a massive rivalry with FCK. It's the big rivalry, isn't it, in Danish football, Henry? And I mean, for the neutrals, what's the sort of the main difference between the two clubs? Who should you be supporting as a neutral? Which would you sort of lean towards? Which of the two teams do you prefer, Henry, if you don't mind even saying? Would you dare even answer that one?
It's a bit dangerous to answer that one, I think. No, I've written an article about this on my website on footballindenmark.com. Go check it out, where I've interviewed fans from kind of both sides to sort of get a perspective of, what does it mean to them? FC Copenhagen, obviously a relatively new team in terms of, only formed in '92, but there's been plenty of opportunity for drama over the years and plenty of opportunity for resentment to build between them. I mean, I think I've said it before. I do have a bit of a soft spot for FC Copenhagen. They were the first team that I watched in Denmark. Thomas Delaney was what sort of got me into watching the Superliga in the first place. But I think that certainly speaking to fans from both sides, I think it's kind of different for us who are on the other side of the North Sea. As you'll know from supporting an English team, rivalries like that are really kind of lived by the people up close and in the city, and who have to turn up to work and face their foes the day after a derby day. But I'm really looking forward to going out there in August and experiencing it for the first time. And yeah, I would urge anyone who's not watched it to watch that fixture in the first or second weekend of August. And yeah, decide, maybe read the article on my website, decide which team appeals to you more, and sit down and watch a fantastic derby that is truly one of the spectacles of world football.
Yeah, I suppose it's got a sort of similarities to maybe even Rangers Celtic, something like that. Two big clubs from one city, and you'll know better than me about winning and losing a city derby, Henry. We don't really have any, as a one club city here in Leeds. Yeah, we've had our losses to somewhere like Barnsley or Hull, but I guess it doesn't quite hurt as much as if it was another club within the same city. So yeah, it's a fascinating rivalry there between Brøndby and FC Copenhagen. You're predicting Brøndby for 5th spot this year, and the top 5 positions are all teams that were in that top 5 last year in whatever order. But your 6th spot here, Henry, is going to be a different team compared to last year's table.
Yeah, and again, it's tricky to pick who's going to break into the top 6. But the way that they rounded off the season, I've put Odense in there.
Just before we go into Odense, we better describe what actually happens in this league, because there's a split. It's like Scotland, isn't it? After 22 matches, the top 6 get split into the Championship group, and then the bottom 6 into the relegation group, and then they play each other twice more to get an overall games played of 32. Am I right in saying? Yeah.
Exactly. Spot on. Yeah. And so you will hear Superliga fans talking about top 6 because that's the key to get yourself into the Championship group, and then anything is possible because you're just playing the other teams in that group. And it also means if you just sneak into the top 6, it means that you've avoided relegation with certainty with 10 games to go, which is quite nice. So yeah, I have predicted Odense to be that team to sneak into the top 6. They're managed by Andreas Alm, who's formerly of ICOR and Hacken, so will be known to listeners of the Nordic Football Podcast. And yeah, he plays typically a 4-2-3-1, very kind of possession-led football. with a kind of a low block preferred to a high press. In fact, they were the lowest possessions won per 90 in the final third team last season. So really not a team that presses from the front. But I was really impressed by how they kind of kicked on in the second half of the season. In the relegation round, they were unbeaten until the final game of the season. And so, yeah, I just have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to nab that sixth spot. But it's not without some reservations.
Who've been their key transfers in and out so far?
That's a good question. Well, I think that one of the key players who I'm actually going to speak about later, but one of the key players actually came in January was Mihailo Ivancevic, a Serbian centre back. And typically, when you're coming from a non-Danish league, it can take players a little bit of time to sort of get their legs under the table, get used to the league, get used to all of the dynamics of playing in a new country. And so having had that 6 months, I think that he's really kind of like bedded in nicely now and is starting to show some real quality. And I think that he's going to be kind of linchpin of that Odense defense, and potentially by the end of the season, one of the top defenders in the league. So yeah, I think that he's been really important. In terms of their summer dealings, they actually have just announced the signing today, which is a centre back from Hammarby. Not someone I know a great deal about, but kind of adds some experience and some depth to the position there, which is quite important. That there were times last season where they played, I can never pronounce this, but Sevakov at centre back, and I think that there's a chance that he might be used slightly further up the pitch this season. But yeah, Bjorn Paulson it was from Hammarby who's come in at centre back, and yeah, I think that there's still some deals to be done at Odense. There's obviously a long time left in the window, but they've added some interesting pieces, and so yeah, I think that sixth might be a stretch for them, but I'm tipping them to do it. I think what they need to iron out is the fact that they only scored more than 2 once last season, and that was in like a 6-0 thrashing of Weiler. And I guess the flip side of that coin is that they only conceded more than 2 on 3 occasions. So, they don't score a huge amount of goals. They don't concede a huge amount of goals. I do still have some concerns about the keeper. The fact they were the team who that they were 4th in terms of most goals conceded, and had the lowest save percentage of teams that stayed up, and the joint fewest clean sheets. So yeah, I do have concerns about the keeper, and I guess defensively more broadly. But I think that they've got enough quality to challenge for that top 6 spot.
Yes, very well said there. So Odense is your prediction for 6th, and just talk us through that, round up the prediction for the top 6 again, Henry, before we have a little break here.
Yeah, so we've got FC Copenhagen finishing 1st, hot on their heels, FC Midtjylland, followed by Aalborg under Lars Friis. I think Silkeborg will then get into 4th place, followed by Brøndby in 5th, and Odense sneaking into the best of the rest and getting a spot in the championship group, powered by the goals of Issam Jebali and Jakob Broim.
Brilliant. Well, we'll take a break now, and when we return, we'll talk about the bottom half of the table and also Henry's 10 to watch for the upcoming season. Join us in a little bit. Welcome back to the Nordic Football Podcast, and we've got a Danish Superliga Season Preview with myself, Steve Wyss, and Henry Nicholls. So, we've done the top six. Let's have a look at some teams that might push Brøndby and Odense for a spot in that championship group, perhaps. Randers in 7th place. Now, do you think they're a realistic chance of getting into that top six then, or is it going to be a clear split here?
So I think that they've got one of the best managers in the league in Thomas Thomasberg, and they obviously came off the back of quite a strong showing in Europe last season. But I think that ultimately finishing 6th was a bit of a disappointment. That they only won 3 of their final 10 in the championship group, and really it was that kind of run in the final 10 that cost them. 5th would have been enough to get a spot in the European playoff. And on top of that, they've lost a couple of key players in friend of the show, Vito Hammershoimstrati, but also Simon Piesinger, the centre-back. And I think that, Vito was really the only attacker who stayed fit for the whole season. And he's obviously departed. And Piesinger was, a really key part of that defense and a really adept passer from the back, and he's gone. Replacing those two are going to be tricky, but not just because they're great players, but it also means that Randers will have lost 2 captains inside a year, because obviously Erik Marksen departed in January to Nordsjælland. So the question is, can they replace them? I think that one of the big stories of Randers last season was the fact that they were just absolutely clobbered by injuries, especially in attack. If you look at their attackers, Kamara only played 14 games, Odie only played 23, Marvin Ego 10, Brock Madsen 19. So I think that if they get a bit more luck and can get those players out there more consistently, then maybe losing Vito will be less of a big deal. Odie was particularly good last season. He got 13 goals and 2 assists in all competitions, and I think if they can get him cooking on a similar run next season, then I think that they've got a good chance of running Odense close. I think that their style is incredibly high intensity pressing. They get the most interceptions per match. They make the most successful tackles per match. They won most final third possessions. They get the most corners, most offsides. So they're very busy in that attacking third and play a very intense style of football. And I think that when you have to play in 2 competitions, that style of football does catch up with you in terms of injuries. And so I think going back to 1 game a week is going to help them.
Yes. So that is Randers in 7th place prediction. Now, 8th spot, Aarhus, only survived by 1 point last year, Henry. So this is although only a couple of spots higher in terms of prediction, it seems quite significant in terms of, compared to where they were last year. But I do remember now, you said they were big time underachievers the previous campaign. They should be getting back to where more is expected of them this year, yeah?
Yeah, you'd have thought so. I mean, they only won 6 games last season, and actually only 1 win this calendar year. And even in that game, they were 2-0 down and won with a 92nd minute goal. I think I talked about this on the season review, but the statistics are just absolutely damning for them last season. So 2nd fewest goals scored, fewest shots on target per match, fewest big chances created of any team, fewest accurate passes per match, most fouls per match for the 2nd season running, most cards. And so, it was really a poor season for them. But they've parted ways with the manager. They've brought in Man City legend Uwe Rosler, and he talks about playing a heavy metal style of football. So Jurgen Klopp style, high pressing, high energy, very fast counter attacks. And I think that that's going to be a shot in the arm for them. The season before last, they relied very heavily on crosses. Last season, their passing was woeful. They had the lowest number of accurate passes per match and the lowest pass accuracy. So I think that turning them into more of this kind of like heavy metal style, I think will be will give them a way to hurt teams. And I think that they've made some interesting moves in the market. They weren't able to keep Jack Wilshere, who is now retired, but they did bring in Tobias Molgaard from Weiler, who's a very versatile player who can play at right back, right midfield, and defensive mid. And he was one of the big talents at Weiler, so that was a big signing. They signed Mads Emil Madsen, a former Danish under-21 centre midfielder. They signed from Slavia Prague, and he has ruffled a few feathers as a former Silkeborg player. So there's bad blood between Silkeborg and Aarhus. So moving to their rivals was certainly caused a bit of a scene. And then a Norwegian player, Sigurd Horgan, who you will know better than me, but 21 goals last season in the Norwegian second tier. So could he be the answer to their goal scoring? Question to you.
I think it's a really good signing. This is a fellow who was linked with the likes of Bodø/Glimt and Molde in the winter, seen as an option for teams like that. So for a team that finished third bottom last year, this guy is a three-dimensional forward, physical, technical, and he's got a bit of pace about him as well. And his last goal for Aalborg was a very good goal. It was a 1-0 against Strømsgodset. I think he'll get them some goals for sure. Uwe Rosler, of course, in charge. I think he's an experienced manager, actually. This is an interesting interesting team, actually, that might be one to keep an eye on, I think, Henry. They certainly have got my interest here of Aarhus.
Yeah, and I think that it was seen as a bit of a coup getting him in. You know, he's quite a big name. Obviously, had a very prolific playing career too. But yeah, I think that style of football is exciting, and I think that after last season, you know, the fans in Aarhus really want something to get excited about, and they might well have it. So yeah, let's see how they get on. But I can't see them getting embroiled in another relegation scrap this time.
Now, last year, Viborg got 7th place, but you think they're going to drop down a little bit this campaign down to 9th. What do you think is going to bring about that slide?
Yeah, again, I could be wrong here, but we talked about the effect of the second season for a promoted team. And I think that Viborg, with their potential European campaign, you know, they still need to get through a few qualifying rounds, but if they get into Europe, I think that's going to stretch the squad considerably. I think also losing Lars Friis mid-season, you have to sort of wait and see whether that's going to have an effect over a whole season. But I certainly feel like losing him was a blow. They obviously lost Sebastian Groning in January too, and last season only Midtjylland missed more big chances than them. It was 49 big chances missed. That they had the fewest interceptions per match too, and so I just wonder whether some of those things are going to catch up with them next season. I could be wrong. That they've still got a lot of talent there in, you know, Christian Sorensen, in Jeppe Groning, and I think that there's still some exciting players there. But yeah, I just wonder if it's perhaps not a season where they're going to be threatening the top 6, and in fact might get into more of a relegation scrap.
They are actually, with the bookmakers, the biggest price out of all the teams that were retain in from the Super. It's not including the promoted sides. A massive 250 to 1 sort of shot. So I think it's generally seen that they will kind of slide down a little bit this campaign. But would generally just surviving be a good outcome, do you think, for Viborg?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that I think that last season was really remarkable to even have a chance of getting into Europe, particularly after losing manager mid-season. So yeah, I think if they can just stick in the league again, make a few smart additions, then yeah, I think that will definitely be seen as a success for them.
Who's a couple of key players for them this season?
Christian Sorensen, absolutely. We're going to talk about him later, but he amazingly played all 90 minutes in all 32 games. So he was ever present. He was the most creative player in the league by a considerable distance. And yeah, he was just so important to everything they did. Operating at left back, I think it's actually the first time that he's played left back for more than a game or two in his career. So he's really kind of found his position late in his career. He's previously played higher up the pitch, but yeah, he was absolutely sensational. So he's a really key player. And then their captain, Jeppe Groning, who's a kind of midfield anchor man. He was second in the league last season for tackles won, also second for fouls committed, but a really big presence in central midfield. And yeah, but like breaks up the play like nothing else. So those two are really fundamental to what they do.
Okay, let's move on to the team you are predicting in 10th place, the final spot to avoid relegation. And who are you going with here, Henry?
So I'm going with FC Nordsjælland, which I never like predicting them to have a bad season because I'm so bought into what they're doing and the whole right to dream story, and I really like their sort of the fact that they trust young players and bring through young players. I really like that they are sort of doing things differently, but I can't see past them really struggling next season. You know, they're not just the youngest squad in the league, and the average age of their squad is 21 and a half, and that's after adding a couple of sort of players at the more veteran end of the scale in January. I think the nearest squad to that is Brøndby at over 24, but you know, they're one of the youngest squads anywhere in any of the top any of the major European leagues. And I think that kind of youthfulness, it comes with two sides of the coin, right? It can be really exciting and you know, carefree, exuberant attacking football, but it also can mean that you lack a bit of the experience to kind of grind results out or deal with slumps in form. And yeah, I'm concerned about them. Only 4 teams scored fewer goals last season, and you know, Simon Adingra was their top scorer, and he's now been sold. So I think you remove Adingra from that team, and there's a real concern over, you know, who's going to score goals. And only the relegated teams conceded more, and of those, only Weiler conceded more shots. So you know, they're conceding lots of goals, conceding lots of shots, and not scoring a huge amount. And that to me is a bit of a recipe for a struggle. So I've put them in 10th. I did toy with the idea even that they could get relegated, as crazy as that sounds. And I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that some of the talents that they have really blossom this season and take them up the table. But just looking at the squad, looking at how they performed last season, and you know, particularly looking at them without Simon Adingra, I just can't see them having a strong season. Just can't see it at the moment.
That is a big sale. That's a lot of money for a club like Nordsjælland, isn't it? I mean, would you expect them to invest in that money, or did they need the money for, you know, to show up the finances and stuff like that?
Well, they sold Kamaldeen Sulemana last summer for 15 million euros, which is a league record. Actually, depending on where you look, it's somewhere between 15 and 20 million euros, maybe. So I'm sure that covered them financially for a while going forward. Obviously, Adingra wasn't quite at that level price-wise, but still of considerable fee. I think it was 7-8 million euros. So that's a very sizable fee. That they're not a team that go out and spend big money on players. That they have got such a pipeline of talent coming through. But at the same time, I really think that this might be time for them to sort of dip into the market for an experienced goal scorer. And I say experienced, I just mean someone over 25 maybe who's scored goals at the top level for a few seasons consistently to lead the line. I just think that's so important, and they've got lots of the pieces to go around them. You put a top goal scorer with Andreas Sheldrup at left wing. You give them Oliver Villadsen bombing forward at sort of right wing back. I think that they're gonna feast from that. But I think that you have to have someone to score those goals. And I look across the squad at the moment, and I can't really see where it's coming from.
Yeah, so you got them in 10th place, but just surviving. Now we're going to talk about the two newly promoted sides. Unfortunately, you are tipping them both to go straight back down. We've got Horsens and Lyngby,
That's
two
right.
sides that have come up. So in which order are you predicting them in, Henry?
Well, the first thing that I'll say is that I'm almost certainly going to be wrong here in predicting both of them to go down, because it's never happened in the Superliga that both promoted teams have gone straight back down. So I'm predicting this purely because I know less about these two teams than the others. But I feel like from what I've seen and what I know, I've got Lyngby in 11th and Horsens in 12th. I think if either of those teams are going to have a chance of staying up, it's certainly Lyngby for me anyway. And yeah, shall I get into a bit of what you can expect from those two promoted sides?
Yeah, I mean, let's just have a look. First of all, Horsens actually won the first division last year, didn't they? 64 points to Lyngby's 63. But let's start with Lyngby, because you're having them in 11th place. What can we expect from this team?
Yeah, so they tend to play on the counter, particularly down the left through both Sorensen and Kastrup, and go for maybe a bit more of a slower style through the middle. But I think what was interesting is that they struggled when they had higher possession. In fact, most of their points came from having an average possession of 53%, but as soon as their possession sort of got to 57% and above, they tended to drop points. So I think it's going to suit them playing on the back foot a bit more, as they will in the Superliga. They've got a few sort of interesting players that I'm very excited to watch more regularly. Adam Sorensen, left wing back, who's 21. He looks particularly impressive as a kind of all-rounder in terms of, strong going forward, strong defensively. He's very fast, and he was the joint highest assist provider alongside Kastrup last season with 7. So I think that, if you're building your fantasy team at the moment, he could be an interesting player to look out for, with lots of creation down that left-hand side. There's also Magnus Kastrup, again 21, so young guy, and he can score with both feet. He protects the ball well, and yeah, he was a big part of their success last season. And a player who was interesting because he sort of broke through later in the season due to injuries, but a guy called Kasper Danny Winter. And he's only 19, but yeah, he came in towards the tail end of the season and didn't look out of place at all. And I think that he's a player who I think Lyngby fans feel could be quite special. He's a very adept passer, and even in that sort of cameo, I say cameo, it was sort of 10, 11 games, but he looked like a really good prospect coming through. So yeah, I think they're going to be interesting. And this summer made a signing from Nykøbing, but a player that is being dubbed the Danish Peter Crouch. He's a 6'7" striker, Christian.
He got a good robot dance.
But yeah, he was the top scorer in the league last season in the first division. So he's come in, and at 6'7", he's going to give them something completely different style wise. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he goes.
How much of a big difference do you think there is between the first division and the SAS Superliga?
I think that there's quite a big difference between the top and the bottom of the Superliga. So I think when you get to the bottom of the Superliga, the difference in quality between that and the top of the first division is pretty minimal. But I think that when you go from playing first division teams every week and then have to mix it up with Copenhagen and Midtjylland and Brøndby, I think that there's a clear difference there. But I think that that I wouldn't be surprised to see these teams scrapping it out with some success with the likes of Nordsjælland, Viborg, Aarhus, perhaps. So
the bottom team you're predicting is Horsens. Is that how you pronounce it? Is it Horsens? I don't know, but
I think it's Horsens.
Horsens will do. So they've come back up, and but you think you're going to go straight back down here, Henry? Let's enlighten us on this side.
Yeah, they're quite a defensive-minded team, which will suit them well. They play on the counter. Typically have kind of 3 centre backs and 2 quite pacey wing backs, with mostly sort of hard-working players going forward. But a couple of technically gifted players in Tengstedt and Sigurdsson. And so they've got a few players who will be interesting to watch. So I mentioned Kasper Tengstedt. He was their top scorer last season. He plays for Denmark under 21, and I think that he's a very good attacking player. And remains to be seen how he'll cope with the step up to Superliga. But I think that he could be interesting. And then, there's a couple of other players I'm looking forward to watching. Aaron Sigurdsson, he's a 29-year-old Icelandic international, actually, a former Icelandic international left winger, played at Tromsø and Start in Norway, so you'll probably know him quite well. But he was the best player in spring, and certainly important in their build-up play. He got 5 assists and 8 goals across the league and the cup last season.
You're really worrying for Horsens, though. You just don't think they're going to have quite enough to. I mean, it does help that the last 10 games are likely to be against teams down there. I mean, it's not like you have to play FCK 4 times at least, is it?
No, that's true. I think I need to see them 3 or 4 times to get a decent read of how they're going to cope with the level up. But I think that the player I'm most excited to see how he copes with the step up is Magnus Riesgaard Jensen, who's a kind of a rare breed in that he's a 6'5" centre back who also plays as a striker. So last season he played about 2/3 of the games as a centre back and 1/3 of the games as a striker, and ended the season with 11 goals and 7 assists. And about half of those goals and half of the assists were as a centre back. So and that was in the league and the cup. But I think that he's one of the best players on the team. He's a real fan favourite, and there's something about that ability to play centre back, centre forward. Dion Dublin-esque. I quite like it when a player has a completely unusual second role in the team.
And Aaron Sigurdarsson, I remember him from his time in Norway. I think he's actually got some Icelandic caps. He was a very frustrating player that seemed to be on the cusp between like Obos level and Eliteserien level. But you could sense that there was a player in there. If he sort of was more consistent, then he could be a big threat. I mean, back in the day, he had quite a lot of pace. But I think he must be nearly on 30 now, I think.
He's 28.
Yeah, so interesting player. Certainly got a bit of flair about him. I'll say that. Be interesting to see how he copes with Horsens. So let's go through that 7 to 12 prediction again, then, Henry.
Yeah, so in 7th, we've got Randers, last season 6th place, dropping into the relegation group this year. 8th, we've got Aarhus, who I'm expecting to kind of find a bit of form under Uwe Rosler and recover to an extent from what happened last season. Then in 9th, I've got Viborg, 10th, FC Nordsjælland, 11th, Lyngby, and 12th, Horsens.
Okay, brilliant. There you have it. The team season preview predictions from Henry. And now we're going to do your 10 to watch. We always have this on the Nordic Football Podcast pre-season previews. So just first of all, let's run through the 10. Henry, give us the list.
Yeah, okay, great. So we're going to have Mads Hermansen, the goalkeeper from Brøndby. We're going to have Victor Christiansen, left back from FC Copenhagen. We're going to have Jakob Broim, left winger at Odense. We're going to have Andreas Sheldrup, left winger from FC Nordsjælland. We're going to have Rooney Bardghji, right winger at FC Copenhagen. We're then going to have Sebastian Jorgensen and Nikolai Vallis, both of Silkeborg. We're going to have Mihailo Ivanchevich from Odense. And we're going to finish with Rafael Onyedika of FC Midtjylland and Christian Sorensen of Viborg.
Let's start with the two FCK players, Victor Christiansen and Rooney
Bardghji.
So, yeah, Christiansen. Tell us a bit more about him. Young lad.
Yeah, so I mean, FC Copenhagen's academies produced, a significant number of talents over recent years. We can all think of Mohamed Darami, Jonas Wind, who both departed during the course of the season, each in excess of 10 million euros, which is pretty monumental fees in the context of the Superliga. But yeah, Christiansen was really impressed me last season. He established himself in the starting 11 straight away, and for a 19-year-old, or it might be 20 now, that's really impressive. And I think that he's going to be one of the next crop of players who are attracting similar attention from top clubs. I think there was even some talk already this summer about Benfica sniffing around. But yeah, I think that despite the fact that he picked up a few knocks last season, he only made 21 appearances in the league. When he was fit, he was an ever-present fixture in their back four. And I think what's really impressive about him is that he's got this fantastic defensive nous, but also a really effective overlapping runner in attack. And particularly when Mo Darami was still there, that combination that he had down the left with him was absolutely sensational to watch. I think there's a decent chance that FC Copenhagen will go into the group stage of the Champions League this year. And I think that would be enough to keep Christiansen around for another season. But I think that, he's already a fixture in the under-21s for Denmark. And I think that it's not going to be long until, big clubs come knocking for a left back that has so much promise and so much ability.
Now, this Rooney Bardghji.
Yeah.
Now, Jonathan is known on this podcast as putting some really young kids on his 10 to watch. And it seems like you are taking a leaf out of his textbook here, because this is a 16-year-old. But he's made several appearances for the first team already.
He has.
An exciting attack-minded player.
Yeah, and actually, I was lucky enough to be at his debut in November, and the strange thing is, not strange thing, probably a good thing, but the Superliga rules state that you can't play in the Superliga till you're 16. So FC Copenhagen probably would have played him at 15 if they could, but they waited for him to turn 16, and a few days later he made his debut in the starting lineup, no less, against Aarhus, and really hit the ground running. He was very lively in that game, constantly looking for the ball, constantly taking people on, running. He's a very kind of tricky dribbler, left-footed right winger, and was kind of unlucky not to score in that game. He won man of the match, scored a week later in the Superliga. Fantastic goal from outside the area. And yeah, he's already playing for Sweden under 21s, I think. And it was just, it was crazy. FC Copenhagen put out a documentary on his sort of the year leading up to his debut. And you saw him playing for the under 19s, and he just looked like he was a completely different level to all the other players, even though he was 15. And you wondered, is this going to translate into ability at first team level, where you're obviously playing, against grown men who are very physically strong. Is a 16-year-old going to be able to handle it? And yeah, he looked like a fish in water. It was fantastic. So I would say that it's worth kind of remembering he's still going to be 16 when the season starts. So don't expect too much from him. But at the same time, he was starting games last season fairly consistently. And I think that I think that he's got so much talent and ability, and seems to have a really good attitude. I think that he's going to thrive.
So 2 players to watch there from FCK, Rune Badaji and Victor Christiansen. Now, well, let's move to the player to watch you've got from FC Midtjylland, and that is Rafael Onyedika.
That's right.
Pronounced that right? Nigerian midfielder.
Yeah, and he really only came into the Midtjylland team this past season. He was replacing his Nigerian compatriot Frank Onyeka, who departed for Brentford actually in a big money move by Superliga standards. I think it was another one in the kind of double digits. But he came into the team coming off the back of a really superb loan spell at Federicia in the division below. He won a place in team of the season, and he came back and sort of took up this position in centre midfield with Evander, and ended the season as the Superliga's Young Player of the Year, which is no mean feat given how much talent's in the league. So he just looked like he was the perfect foil for Evander. He's got a really well-rounded game that combines great physicality and a superb footballing IQ. I think that he reads the game really well. He's shown a great ability to press high up the pitch. He often, forces errors from opposing centre-backs. While, when he's on the ball, he's got really good footwork. It makes him quite press resistant in that sense. And he popped up last season with a few goals. It was a notably good finish actually against Randers from outside the box. Great bit of close control to score against Celtic as well in Europe. And he's really just kind of like the archetypal box-to-box midfielder who can contribute meaningfully at both ends of the pitch. And I think that it's pretty clear that he's going to follow in Frank Onyeka's steps and go on to a top European league sooner, probably rather than later.
Brilliant. Let's move on to a goalkeeper now. I do love a goalkeeper, I must say, on these tend to watch lists, Henry. So I'm glad you've got one in. Mads Hermansen at Brøndby. He's already got a decent market value. And is he sort of the next Peter Schmeichel?
I mean, he could be. Peter Schmeichel's obviously the kind of gold standard example of a young goalkeeper coming through at Brøndby and heading to the national team and beyond. And Mads Hermansen, at 21, he's already represented Denmark at under 17, under 19, and under 21. So it will probably take Kasper Schmeichel hanging up his gloves to get into the national team, but he's the main successor. And he really he is another player who just came into the team last season, and obviously Brøndby were coming in last season having won the title. They'd sold a number of players, so obviously Jesper Lindstrom departed for the Bundesliga, but also their title-winning goalkeeper Marvin Schwab departed for FC Köln in Germany. And so Hermansen came in and had a real presence. I think like for a 21-year-old goalkeeper to come in and really sort of be so commanding in the box, so vocal with his back line. he talks about how he feels like he's the captain, even if he's not wearing the armband. He has that kind of level of authority. And I think that he's got the trust of the defense too, which is really important. So, yeah, he doesn't feel like a 21-year-old keeper. He had the 4th highest save percentage last season. And I think that he's a player who's going to be on a lot of clubs' radars who are looking for, a keeper who's already proving himself at quite a high level and who has plenty of upside still to go. So yeah, he's a really, really exciting talent.
I'm going to move to the more veteran on your list now, Henry. Christian Sorensen at Viborg. I don't want to leave him till last, just because they're one of the lower ranked sides that you've done this year. Christian Sorensen. I know you're a really big fan of this guy, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think that it's obviously it's quite easy to pick lots of young talents on this list, and that I could have probably done a 20 to watch very comfortably, but I thought I'd include Christian Sorensen, who's 29, but he was one of my favorite players to watch last season, and looking at some of the statistics is quite mind blowing how productive he was. So he laid on a league leading 118 chances for his teammates last season, and that's 45 more than the player sat in second place, who is none other than Evander. So probably the single best player in the league, Evander, and Christian Sorensen's there creating 45 more chances over a season. And I think it's a travesty that he only finished the season with 8 assists, which was still good enough for 3rd overall in the league. But I think it was more down to the poor finishing of his teammates than anything else. If you look at his XA, it was 14.8. So he should have had 15 assists with average finishing. But as we talked about earlier, only Midtjylland missed more big chances than Viborg. And I think that he was so potent down that left-hand side. I think you can tell that he used to play further forward on the pitch, because he's so effective with that overlapping run. Has a great delivery, but both on the deck and in the air. So yeah, I think that he was a real key reason why Viborg were able to claim so many scalps last season and get into the Europa League. So watch out for him next season.
Yeah, I like the idea of including a veteran in there, actually, or older player. It doesn't have to be young players on this list, of course, at all. But we'll move now to Silkeborg, because you've got 2 players and you tend to watch from them, both on the wings, actually, Sebastian Jorgensen and Nikolai Valles. Now, I remember Jorgensen, we had a big talk about him in the season review, didn't we? And you think he's going to go really well again. But overall, it looks like they are well sorted out wide, Silkeborg.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys are like Jordan and Pippin. They've just got such incredible production, such a connection on the pitch, and yeah, it's really impossible to talk about how Silkeborg did last season without talking about these 2 players. They're almost telepathic, and they're both inverted wingers. So Jorgensen plays, primarily down the right, but is left-footed. And I would say that, of the 2, Jorgensen is the most direct. I certainly wouldn't describe him as a tricky winger. He's much more kind of like ruthless and efficient and direct and speedy. But yeah, he finished the season with 11 goals and 9 assists and 68 chances created. So I think that was 4th for goals, 2nd for assists, and 4th for chances created. So incredibly productive player. And yeah, he as you might expect for a left footer operating on the right, he's pretty adept at cutting inside and shooting. But I think what makes him so difficult to defend is he can also go on the outside and go on his right. And so defenders don't really have an easy way to nullify him. And I think that I've said it before, but I think there's every chance that him and Nikolai Valles catch some teams cold in Europe next season, particularly with Mark Brink sitting deep, sort of feeding them. but then on the other side of the pitch, you've got Nikolai Valleys. So I guess he was kind of equally dangerous. He got 10 goals, which was 5th overall, and 10 assists, which was 1st overall. And you really shudder to think like what his season could have looked like if he'd delivered on more of the big chances he missed. And he missed 11 big chances. Only Sebastian Groning from Viborg, who left midway through the season, missed more big chances. And I think that the two of them make that Silkeborg front three so hard to defend against. You've got Hellenius's physical presence and obviously superb finishing, but then that kind of creates a target for the wingers, but it also draws some of the defenders' attention away. So it creates room for Valleys and Jorgensen to kind of buzz into the free spaces. And this kind of like quite fluid front three, where the players are sort of constantly looking to exploit the space that opens up, is really really fantastic to watch. And I think as his statistics make clear, both of them, aren't just top class finishers or providers. They're the rare combination of both, and combine it with really intelligent off the ball movement, adept decision making, and particularly Nikolai Valleys is impressively 2-footed. So yeah, I think that they were really thriving in that system under Kent Nielsen last season, and I can only envisage more of the same.
Yeah, I mean, he predicted them high again, so a big part of their season is going to be on them two players, Sebastian Jorgensen and Nikolai Valleys. Now you've got two more players from Odense, actually, Jakub Broim and Mihailo Ivanchevich.
That's right, yeah.
So let's start with Jakub Broim.
Yeah, so he kind of is an 18-year-old left winger, right-footed left winger. So these kind of inverted wingers are very popular in the Superliga at the moment. And yeah, he's at 18. He's only really sort of finding his feet in senior football now. But he's turned out for Denmark under 19s. In fact, he's got 5 goals in 7 appearances for them, and he's a really he's very much a kind of goal scoring wide midfielder, winger, if you like, and loves kind of dribbling down the left, cutting in on the right, and smashing a shot in. He has a shoot first mentality, and he got 4 goals and 2 assists from 840 minutes of football last season. So I mean that's a pretty good return for an 18-year-old, and I think that he's going to be a solid starter for Odense next season. So yeah, I'm really excited about what he can put together, and I think he's going to make the step up to the 21s national team. And I think that if he can reproduce what we saw in that kind of limited number of minutes last season over a full season, I think it's going to be really exciting.
The other player is a centre-back, Mihailo Ivanchevich.
Yeah, but big Serbian centre-back. And I think that, in a relatively short space of time, a few months, I think he's shown glimmers of what makes him such an exciting prospect. He's very much a kind of modern style centre back. He's very adept at using both feet. He's got quite an aggressive approach to defending, but then looks incredibly calm in possession, and is a great passer of the ball. I think that teams are always on the lookout for a centre back who's not just a lump but can actually play the ball, and it's a bit of a reoccurring theme in the Superliga, that there are defenders who can do that. So he's one of the modern breed of defenders who can do that and look quite assured in possession, and he's also got a nice turn of pace. So I think that he's got a very well-rounded skill set for a centre back, and I think that he could prove to be one of the standout defenders in the league, especially now that he's got half a season under his belt.
The final player on the list then, and it may well be the most exciting talent of a lot of them, Andreas Schjelderup, who famously, of course, came from the Bodø Glimt youth system over in Norway. Just an 18-year-old, he plays everywhere in sort of attack, doesn't he, by the looks of it? But this lad, there's always been a lot of talk about him. I know he's highly rated. He's already highly valued. And, he looks like the next big talent to come out of Nordsjælland.
Absolutely, yeah. And at 18, he's already got 2 seasons in the Superliga under his belt. So I think that he really kind of typifies FC Nordsjælland's youth-led approach. I think that he burst onto the scene and sort of midway through a couple of seasons ago for Nordsjælland, and it looked like he was going to be a sort of immediate big hit, and he's been fantastic. I would say last season he maybe his development didn't continue on the same trajectory as it had been looking at, but he's still, to me, one of the like the big talents in the league. And I think that, as you say, he's got that ability to play a number of different positions. I think that in some respects, he reminds me of a bit of a throwback to the era of the kind of the classic number 10 or trequartista, because he's got the ability to operate behind a central striker with a real kind of top level close control. He can shoot from distance. He's a good finisher from close range too. But I think that his favored position is more on the left, as a sort of inverted left winger, where he's able to find kind of pockets of space and sort of playing in like a front three suits him best. But yeah, he feels, watching him play, he looks definitely mature beyond his years. I think that he's got a fantastic ability to avoid being pressed on the ball, but he's also able to make decisions under pressure. So whether it's to pass or to shoot, he always seems to make the right decision. I think part of the reason why last season his development didn't continue on the same at the same pace, perhaps, was that he did suffer some injuries. I think he only completed 90 minutes twice since the turn of the year. But I think that if Nordsjælland can bring in a couple more attacking pieces for him to work with, I think that he should have the players to really thrive next season in terms of his own personal development. And I think, like you say, Norwegian football is very much on the up at the moment. With obviously you talked about Bodø Glimt, but also Haaland and Odegaard and Høge turning heads in the biggest leagues in the world. And I think that there's every chance that Sheldrup's name, joins them before too long.
Yeah, he is seen as this genuine wonder kid, and a lot of talking about him as the next Haaland, not in terms of actual position, but like in terms of talent. And it will surely be only a matter of time before a big team snaps him up. He's already turned down Liverpool, I think, in his youth days. But Liverpool are definitely a club that's always been linked with this player. How high is his ceiling?
Yeah, it's always hard to tell because as is constantly mentioned, development isn't linear. I think if it was, then his ceiling is absolutely colossal because of what he's shown already at this level at a young age. But I would say that I think that maturity to his game, I think how well-rounded his skills are currently, I would say that next season's pretty key for him, I think, because if he can stay fit for the season and be like an integral part to Nordsjælland's success, then I think that there's every chance he goes next summer. I don't quite know how to predict his ceiling, but I mean Haaland that's a big one that's a big person to follow. But I would say that I'm pretty excited by what he can do, and of this list of players, I would say probably only Rooney is a similar level of potential.
Well, there you go. That is the 10 to watch for you there, Henry. And that is pretty much the end of this season preview. And tell us a bit more about where we can find you, Henry. Tell us a bit more about your website you recently set up as well.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at FootballInDK. And you can find my website at footballindenmark.com, where I've tried to supplement what goes on Twitter, which is sort of general commentary on everything that's happening with the Superliga, kind of through the perspective of me as a relative outsider to the league, being English and not living in Denmark. And yeah, the website's intended to have some sort of longer form pieces and interviews, opinion pieces, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, do come and have a look, and love to talk Danish football with you on Twitter as the season goes on.
Yeah, it's a great account. I would recommend anyone who isn't already following Henry there to give it a go. And just in general, is your excitement level through the roof yet? I know you are going to be going out there to Denmark either once or twice. I think you've got some trips planned to Henry. You're really passionate about Danish football these days. Yeah,
I'm going in August and going to be attending Lyngby versus FC Midtjylland, followed by the Copenhagen derby. First time that I will have been to a derby. So yeah, it's going to be a great doubleheader. Really excited about that. And yeah, even though the Superliga season didn't finish too long ago, I'm itching to get going again. I've really missed having football at weekends, and yeah, it's not long to wait now.
Well, we appreciate your time as always here on the Nordic Football Podcast. An absolutely first-class season preview there. You absolutely know your stuff inside out about this Danish Superliga right now, Henry. Again, thanks for your time, and I'm sure we hope to see you on the Nordic Football Podcast throughout the whole season.
Yeah, let's do it. Cheers, Steve.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, that brings to an end this particular episode. Remember, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Nordic Footpod. You can follow me as well at Meatman Soccer if you so desire. And of course, Henry at Football in DK. So until next time, from me, Steve Wyss, and from Henry Nicholls, it's goodbye. Take care. See you next time.